educating ourselves and our kids about the ongoing legacy and trauma of residential schools is vital for us to strive towards change. Jenny Kay is here with us today. So we are going to talk about her children's book, I Am Not a Number, here it is right here, and how we can have these important conversations with our kids. So Jenny, your book is based on your grandmother's own experience in residential schools. Can you talk to us a little bit and share some of her story?
Sure. So in 1928, an Indian agent arrived at her house. They knocked on the door and indicated to her father and her mother, Ernest and Mary Ann, that they were to line up all the children above a certain age. And from there, he took them north to a residential school. My granny thought she was going to actually be okay. She was going to be safe until she was very quickly separated from her brothers and brought to another school that was neighboring nearby, so the girls' school. When she was there, they quickly changed her name to a number, and they continued to shame her. Everything from telling her to scrub all of the brown off of her skin, to telling her that she could not speak her language, and doing various acts to make sure that she could not speak her language. What's interesting about her story is, and it's different from many other stories that have been shared, is that she returned home for the summer, and when she went home, she told her dad what was going on at this school, and they decided to make a plan. So when the Indian agent returned in September, they hid in the back of his taxidermy shop. So he was a chief of the community, but he was also a taxidermist. So it's really a story about resilience as well, too.
Resilience and resistance, right?
Absolutely. The
way we fight back and push back, and the way Indigenous communities have been able to do that. Why was it important for you to highlight this story in this book?
For me, it was such an important story to share. I grew up in silence, meaning not hearing the stories. And I thought it was so important for young people to hear truths nowadays and have those conversations about it, and also have conversations and realizations about the injustices that Indigenous peoples face, historically, and there's still issues today that they face. When we think of especially that Indian Act and what's buried in that Indian Act.
The legacy remains today. There are a lot of parents at home right now watching and thinking, ooh, how do I have this conversation with my kids? How do you make sure that a conversation that is, there's so much trauma woven into it, is age appropriate for kids?
It was difficult in writing the book to think about, how to do it in an age and grade appropriate way. In this case, what we did was we made sure to break it down into moments in time. Into stories. So thinking of that, the emotions that a child might experience when there's that knock on the door, or a family may experience, thinking of her being taken to this place she didn't know anything about, and also, when you write through emotion as well too, the experiences that she faced being far away from home, separated from her family and her community, and losing her identity, but still trying so hard to hold on to it.
And this book it's traveling, it's going far. So I Am Not a Number was translated into Anishinaabe-Moan. How important was it to have this translated into this Indigenous language as a way of preserving your identity and your culture?
Yeah. It was so important because in terms of thinking about language revitalization and the importance of resources, which we are lacking, this is an opportunity to bring that language home, meaning there was a part in that book where my grandmother was experienced violence and harm for trying to speak her language to a friend of hers when her friend was hungry, and she was disciplined for it in the idea that in the sense that they removed her from the table and they burned her arms with bedpans from it. So here's an opportunity to bring that language home through a book like this.
And this was a process. The translation was a process. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. It was probably close to a year-long process. We worked with community language speakers, it's the ones that were very experienced with the language, and others that are, learning about translation. So they literally sat around a kitchen table and they talked about, the words that they wanted to use. One example being the original word that they had in the community for Indian agent. They realized that they didn't want that perception anymore. Example, the word itself originally meant, the man who gives money. And they said, so they talked amongst themselves and other communities as well that had a similar dialect, and they came up with another word that they felt was, that gave it different meaning.
Do you have any tips to help parents with approaching talking to their kids about residential schools? It's a conversation we all need to be having, an ongoing conversation.
It can be scary for some families, especially when they don't have the background.
Yeah.
But it's important to take the time to learn about the history and to learn the whys behind it, so that they can use an example like a picture book, and there's many out there. When it comes to talking about the residential schools, I'm not a number being one. You can use the illustrations and use it as a picture walk. You just slowly walk through it and have the child or children identify what they're seeing and make predictions about what might be happening next.
Yeah.
Also slowly reading through as opposed to rushing through a book and pausing and talking about how they're feeling, or let them ask questions as well.
Yeah.
Talking through those how and the whys, and working together if you're not 100% sure, to then find the answers as well too. It's a really great way to build empathy and understanding.
Yes, and they're crucial conversations to have. We're very excited for you because Heartberry Bling is your next book that's going to be coming out. We're going to keep it a shh and talk about it when it actually comes out next year, which is May 2023. Yeah. Very excited about it. And Jenny, thank you so much for bringing this education to us and taking the time to speak with us about how we can speak with our kids